Now, I feared at any second my mom would storm out of the apartment and ban my dad from picking us up ever again, because he couldn't even handle a simple trolley bag. Though nothing happened. The faint shimmer of light I'd been able to see through the apartment until now had vanished completely, indicating that our mom had closed the door to the living room. Her way of saying, "Now that your father is here, he'll have to deal with you and any trolleys trashing down the stairs himself." "Okay," nodded my dad, and tried to see the bright side of our otherwise quite dire situation. "The trolley's down, one less thing to worry about, and Bubblegum's still asleep. Are you sitting down right now, Anna?" I answered quickly, "Yes, I am." He used his free hand that had previously held onto the trolley to search for my head, cautiously crouching to transfer Bubblegum into my lap. "You got him?" he asked. I nodded, but then realized that he couldn't see me in the dark of the hallway. "I got him," I added quickly and kept asking. "Are you sure you don't have any food on you right now? A sticky 2-year-old cough drop maybe, or a half-molten leftover chocolate, Nicholas. My stomach has been growling this entire time because I haven't eaten anything since breakfast." "I am literally on my way to get a lunch bag right now," my dad replied a little indignantly. "And I already told you, I've eaten everything I had on the way here." He towed up the stairs carefully, though not carefully enough. I heard him curse quietly as he missed a stair. "Oh gosh darn, my knee!" Then, finally, the light turned back on, and I saw my dad, one hand on a light switch, the other furiously rubbing an aging knee. He reached for the red bag, and my stomach began growling even louder than before. Loud enough that I wondered why none of the neighbors stuck their head into the hallway to complain about the noise. "Dad, can I have something to eat now?" I urged him once more. "Sure you can, once we're sitting in the car and successfully loaded in your 2 friends. Oh dear. Over everything, I'd completely forgotten to inform my dad of that particular mishap of mine. And now was probably the worst possible moment for that confession. But it had to be. "Oh, Dad," I said while returning Bubblegum back into his arms. Bubblegum was somehow, miraculously, still asleep. Oh well, who knows, maybe he just acted the part, so that he wouldn't have to walk. I wouldn't put it past my little brother. My dad went back down the stairs. The trolley had gotten stuck on the 5th-class stair, in such a way that the handle pointed towards the entrance door. After a few seconds of careful maneuvering and balancing that left him precariously close to letting go of Bubblegum a couple times, he'd regained his hold on our trolley, and in the end all 3 of them arrived safe and sound on the ground floor. He'd obviously already forgotten about my timid "Oh, Dad," so I repeated myself, "Oh, Dad?" "Yes, Anna?" he answered with a deceptively friendly tone that told me all I needed to know. He was already pretty much done with everything and just wanted to lay down for a minute. Or an entire hour. "My 2 friends, you know, Kai and Louise," I admitted very hesitantly. "I forgot to tell them that you'd pick us up today instead of tomorrow 4 p.m., you know, the time we originally agreed on." "Amazing," my dad sighed. "Seems like we'll just have to wake them up again." This was a trait I highly valued about my dad. Put in the same situation, my mom would have likely long since given up and said, "I guess you just have to leave without your 2 little friends." My dad, on the other hand, kept searching for solutions, no matter how impossible the task at hand seemed. We actually made it to the car without further difficulties. The headlights burned bright. He'd forgotten to turn them off. Though neither of them burned as bright as I expected them. I pointed it out. "Yes, I know. The bulbs are going to give out sooner or later. It's by far not the only thing wrong with the car. I haven't been able to crank down the window at the driver's seat at all. The nozzle for the windshield washer fluid is broken, and the brakes have started to make those strange noises recently." "Don't you think?" I started to ask carefully, watching in fascination as he tried to shift a sleeping Bubblegum into his children's seat. He refused to wake up still and didn't get a single scratch, where my dad banged his head on the door frame at least twice, and caught himself a bleeding fingernail while attempting to put on Bubblegum's seatbelt. "Don't you think that it would be both safer and faster if we just went by foot?" "Sure," my dad said, rubbing the soon-to-be bruises on his forehead and picking out a trimmed piece of Band-Aid from his wallet. I already knew that he usually kept multiple Band-Aids on himself at all times, because he had witnessed enough scrapes from playing a little too rough on the playground, both on himself and various children. And he was just the type to want to be able to help as quickly and efficiently as possible. Of course we could do that, Anna, as soon as the government decides to extend the average weekends by 2 times 2 months, no problem. Sigh. Another one of those jokes that only he understood and found funny. "Dad, I'm hungry," I reminded him once again. "Not now," he said, and went to stow away the rest of the luggage. He didn't want to put our precious lunch bag onto the wet and, more importantly, dirty courtyard ground. Instead, he placed it on the roof of the car, so that he could easily grab it later, as soon as he had both hands free. Then he crawled into the back of the car to laboriously open the tailgate, as he always did, because the other lock had been broken for as long as I could remember. It took him 5 minutes of quiet curses and mutterings to find a small screwdriver he needed to basically pick the lock. Finally, he found it and opened the tailgate, climbing out while his breath sounded like he had a death rattle. He heaved our trolley in the back of the car and reached for the lunch bag, but then halted, having remembered something more important. "You know where your friends live, right?" Chapter 5, in which we continue trying to set off, but it doesn't get any easier. I turned quiet and didn't answer immediately. Louisa didn't live far away, that I knew. Kai, on the other hand, had been forced to move away in January, and was no longer just one throw of a tennis ball away. He told me that their apartment opposite ours had merely been a temporary stopgap measure, since their previous home had partially burnt down earlier last year. That required intense renovations. They'd finished just after New Year's, and Kai and his parents had moved back into the house. And I had no idea where said house was. After all, I hadn't even known Kai a year ago.